The Why Me Project, an exclusive presentation of Faith Strong Today.
I think the streak is broken officially, Holly, because we've had a number of projectors who are like, talk to this person, and finally we get somebody where we there's no connection and we're going to become best friends by the end of this.
That's the hope.
Lord willing. Crossing fingers.
We'll see how it goes.
I love it.
Yeah. So, author extraordinaire, there's so many different words that I wanted to use, Alison, to express who you are. But I think author, I could have thrown mom in there. There's so many other, a person who does amazing things. I could really just throw anything out there, but, let's just go with, Alison Brown. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
We're good.
Good.
Hanging in there.
Awesome.
By a thread. We like to ask the skill testing question because we never know where it's going to go. And that is, who are you and where did you come from?
Who am I? Oh my goodness. I think you nailed it when you said there's a lot of things you could say there, but I would start with, child of God who absolutely loves to inspire other people, help other people, ignite the fire within other people and show them who they are as well. And I come from Walkerton, Ontario, Canada, a tiny little town that most people knew nothing about until we had the Walkerton E. coli crisis. And then we were on the map. Not for good publicity whatsoever.
Took all of that time.
Yeah, let me tell you, I drink water a whole lot cautiously now. It's a question that most people don't ask, but I always say, is this water safe?
Yeah, I bet. That'd be traumatic to go through that.
It was a wild experience for sure. And seeing all the press flood into our town, it was amazing. I think I was in grade 12 at the time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Man, I vaguely remember hearing about that. It just felt like that was a million worlds away. And yet here in Canada, it's, it happens.
Yeah, it definitely does. And so that kind of put Walkerton on the map. And then from there, I traveled to lots of different places, actually. I did my degree at Brock University in St. Catharines, Ontario. And then I did a second degree in journalism, inspired by the Walkerton E. coli crisis. I saw journalists come in and cover that story. And I saw what the power of telling a story can do. And so I went to Halifax, to Dalhousie University, to a division of that at King's College. And I did my journalism degree in there. Yeah.
Wow.
So if we would have asked you growing up, what did you want to be when you grow up? What would have that answer have been then to where you are now?
I actually put in my yearbook that I wanted to be a writer. So I think I've known it for a really long time. I had a wonderful grade 4 teacher named Mr. Fish who saw that I had a talent with writing and really shone his light on it and brought it to the attention of my parents. And ever since then, I just loved to do it. Like something that brought me, I will say, rest and peace. And I could get into a nice flow state and I love telling stories. So... And God's given me a lot of stories to tell ever since.
Yeah, I bet. What are your favorite stories to tell?
I like real life stories. So I enjoy your podcast so much because it's real life. And that's where we learn from other people's experiences, other people's struggles. So I really enjoy, those real moments, those hard moments, how people came through to the other side of those hard moments and what they learned in the process. And so that's what I really enjoy doing, is sharing, what I've learned in the process of my own personal struggles and trials in hopes that it will help other people through theirs.
Mm-hmm. And that's part of the reason why Holly and I did this. I mean, doing a morning show together for so many years, you only have that much time with an artist or an author or an athlete or whomever, that we wanted to dive into people's lives and hear about those real why me moments. So for somebody who grew up in the middle of nowhere until you're put on the map, did you have any struggles as a child, or was it more as you were growing up?
Mm-hmm. It was a little bit later in life. There was some traumas, but for sure, I definitely had challenges as a child growing up. that I wasn't even aware. I think we're not always aware that this is traumatic until you get through it. And then you look back and you're like, okay, that was traumatic and that was traumatic. Right. So I wasn't fully aware, but I knew the first real trauma for me and my husband, we had just got married. We had just bought a house and we witnessed a plane crash. We heard a plane fly over our house, and Graham was outside walking our dog at the time, and I was in the kitchen, and literally the plane was so loud that it shook the walls of my house. And I ran out. It was November. It was freezing cold. We lived at a lake, and I ran out just in time to see this plane land in the middle of a very cold lake, too far away from where we were to even be able to reach it. And all of the boats and canoes and kayaks and everything had been stored away for the winter. So this man crashed in the middle of our lake, literally had flown right over our house, and he was calling for help and we couldn't get to him in time.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So it was absolutely traumatic, and I knew it at the time, and I called 911 knowing like nobody can help this person, which is horrible, right? I found out later that he was in his 80s. He loved to fly. So he died doing what he loved. He was happily married. He had, grown up children. He knew his grandkids, and he had been a firefighter his whole life. So that broke my heart. I thought, like, for years he helped other people, and we couldn't help him, which was very traumatic. So that was kind of like the first, oh my goodness, this is traumatic. And I didn't even realize that I had, PTSD, or I like Mastin Kipp calls it post-traumatic stress response, because it's not a disorder. It's a response to trauma. It's a natural response. And I didn't know I had that, but I knew that I was subconsciously, like, I was avoiding flying for so many years. Right. So my husband he got this once in a lifetime opportunity to climb Machu Picchu, and he wanted me to come with him. And I didn't go. I had like all these valid excuses. I was raising littles, and someone had to stay home and run the business, and they sounded really valid. And then I didn't go to California with him on a business trip. And then I didn't go to Mexico on an all-inclusive, beautiful trip. So he took like his mom and dad, and he took his brother, and he took other people. And it wasn't until I was on a plane, because my friend called, she had had baby number 2 and was going through some postpartum depression challenges, and she needed help. And I knew it when she called me. And so I went on that plane to Winnipeg, which is only 2 hours from Ontario. But I'm telling you, I had my first ever panic attack on that plane. And for anyone who's ever had a panic attack, they know what I mean when I say I felt like I was going to die, because I really genuinely thought, like, my chest is coming, or my heart is coming through my chest, and I can hardly breathe. It feels like an elephant is sitting on me, and I feel like I'm going to die. And it was in that moment where I didn't say an eloquent prayer. I said a very desperate, God, please help me right now. I don't know why this is happening. You could say, why me, right? Why is this happening right now? What is going on? I had no conscious awareness that, I had a massive fear of flying, and I had some healing to do, right? So that was kind of the first trauma that triggered the awareness that this is something real. And I will say, in that moment, I had a supernatural experience with God where I had the peace that surpasses all understanding. And I was like, wow, that scripture verse is so real right now, because immediately my whole body calmed down. My thoughts stopped racing, and he met me in that desperate moment, for sure.
Wow. I've had a panic attack or two, and so I get it, but mine have been in the comfort of my own home. So to be in public, I think there's like the other extra layer of, oh goodness, like I can't breathe, and I'm having a panic attack, and people are here too.
There was a woman beside me, actually, ironically or not, depending on how you view life, who was a psychologist, and she looked over, and I was like trying to be quiet. Like I was counting down from 10, and I was trying everything, honestly. And she looked over and she said, the sooner you realize that you're not in control of anything, the better off you're going to be. She said, your fear of flying is just a fear of being out of control. And I was like, who is this woman? And that was all she said. It was like the voice of God in my life at the time. And she did say, she's like, I'm a psychologist and I just feel to share that with you. And then literally she went to sleep during the most turbulence I think I've ever experienced on a plane. And I thought, wow, she really knows something that I clearly don't know, because it was a fear of being out of control. And isn't that what life is all about? How much really are we in control? So those words of wisdom, along with my desperate prayer and God just being there in that moment, really brought a lot of awareness to what I was struggling with. And the fact that actually, like, I worry myself into states that I didn't even realize I was doing.
How angry at her were you for giving you a bill when you landed? And she goes,
yeah, right.
Psychologist.
Yeah, she sleeps through the whole rest of the session.
Yeah, right.
So true.
So, my goodness.
But what we don't realize, though, is that with trauma and worry, it is incredibly debilitating. Mm-hmm. So how does somebody heal from that, or how does somebody work their way through something like that?
Yeah, it's been a process. It's been years of a process. And I tell everyone, I wrote the book after I've survived the storm of 10 years of even realizing, okay, this is a thing that I'm struggling with, to getting the healing that I need in the process. So part of that for me looked like I went and I had counseling after the awareness, okay, I have a fear of flying and I need to overcome that, because what I was doing was I was making my life smaller. So the book is titled Don't Let What If Ruin What Is. And that's exactly what was happening. My fear, my worry, my anxiety was shrinking my life, right? So I say no to all these wonderful trips that I will never get back with my husband. Thankfully, I have future trips that I will get, but I can't go back. I can't, hit the sleep button on the nights that I stayed up worrying and going over every worst case scenario and Googling even more. So I can't get that back. So it's been a process of counseling. It's been a process of digging deep into my childhood. I talk about inner work in this book and the importance of, a mess is still a mess in the closet. I shared the story how my son, my oldest son, I love him so much, but my goodness, he's messy. Like, he knows it. We call him a messy genius. He creates all these wonderful things with cardboard. And the one day I said, I reached the limit. I'm like, okay, we are cleaning this room because I can't take it anymore. And he helped me. And at one moment I got so overwhelmed. I was like, I just want to throw all of this in the closet and close the doors and not see it. And I realized a mess is still a mess in the closet. And that's what a lot of adults do with their traumas and their pain and the things that they've been through in their life, is they just want to throw it in the closet, close the doors, and I don't want to have to look at it, or, I'm fine. But then what happens is something comes along in our future and it triggers those past hurts, right? And so that's what I realized was so important for me to do, is to go back and reevaluate all of the traumas. And I did a lot of that digging with counseling. I did a lot of that digging in prayer, and just having awareness that I have to heal from some things in the past in order to be healthy and parent from a place of calm versus parenting from a place of worry all the time.
Yeah. Two things really stand out for me is about just how you didn't just rely on prayer, but you also had therapy. Because I find sometimes in the Christian community, they're like, oh, you're worried? Well, just pray harder. Maybe you're not praying properly. And it's almost like you're being shamed for the feelings that you feel, and it makes you feel even more desperate. But having that coupled with people speaking into your life who are trained and professionals really can round out the healing process.
It's so true. And I would read, be anxious for nothing and worry not for tomorrow. And I'm like, I don't know how to do this. Like, how do I practically implement that into my life? So when we just kind of throw scriptures at people or tell them to bring it to God in prayer, it's like, I think bringing it to God in prayer is important. Equally important is being willing to follow him in the direction of healing for yourself. So whatever he leads, like, that's where you want to go, right? You can't, it's not just, it might be for some an immediate solution, but I think a lot of times God works in a process. And we need to be open and willing to go through that process, and humble enough too, because it takes a lot to ask for help all around, as moms, as humans, right? It's hard to ask for help sometimes, but if we can be willing to do that and just admit, you know what, I need help with this, I'm struggling and I can't do this on my own. And there are people that are skilled who can come in and help you and want to help you, and are excited to be able to be that person and speak those good things into your life. That's so important to be willing to do that. And so, yeah, I had to be willing to do that and willing to admit, you know, like, this is something I struggle with. I don't know why necessarily. I'm sure that it started back in my childhood when there was some uncertainty and some insecurities. And as things happened later in my life, almost losing my oldest when he was 3, we had a crazy emergency life crisis in our family. And all of a sudden we're in London Sick Kids Hospital getting blood transfusions, and almost losing my husband. So I've stood at bedsides and, you know, been in ICU units, and it's really easier said than done to worry not for tomorrow and to be anxious for nothing. And we need those people in our life at those moments, especially, to speak into us and to reassure us. And, you know, you can trust that you're going to be okay and you will get to the other side of this.
What's interesting is one of the top Christian songs on radio, Jeremy Camp, has a song called Anxious Heart. And he talks about the anxiety of losing his wife and how he had this anxiety that his wife now or his kids would be killed or would be gone. And he had this anxiety about it. Then something like COVID had happened where we became isolated and we became not allowing ourselves to have communication with others. And so then that worry and anxiety then added on to everything. But the one thing that I wanted to stress in asking you this is, you went for help, you were getting help, but it wasn't just a one-time, one-fix thing. This is something that you've been working on, because I think people feel like, oh, I'm going to go to a psychologist and I'll be good tomorrow.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, no, it's been a process of 10 years for sure. And, you know, people have asked me recently, even just like, do you still worry? Yeah, I do still worry. That's real life stuff. You know, there's a lot to worry about in our world. And when we look at the world, especially through the COVID crisis and everything, there's, you know, a list of a million things that we could worry about. But the difference now is that because I've done that work over the course of the 10 years, I have tools that allow me to, when my mind starts to go there, allow me to pause and decide, okay, do I want to entertain this thought right now? Do I want to go there? Do I want to Google that? Do I want to allow my sleep to be interrupted again? Or do I want to choose to rest? Do I want to choose peace? Do I want to put my focus on something else other than that? And so experiential gratitude is something that works for me. Reading the Psalms is something that's helped me a lot. So I have the tools now that I didn't have then. But yeah, it was not a one-off thing. It took a long time. It took 10 years. And just last year, I went back to school I went to a Christian counseling course, because now I want to reach my hand back and help other people who are maybe going through something similar or something completely different. And I want to give them those tools in the same way that somebody did for me, so that they can know, yeah, you know what, you might still worry, you might still have anxiety or depression, but there's a way to handle living life with it, and you don't have to suffer from it, and it doesn't have to steal from you.
I love what you say about, like, you have a choice. And I feel sometimes when you're in the thick of it, like, you are so worried you can't see the forest for the trees, and you think, I don't have a choice. This is my response that I have to have. And sometimes we feel so controlled by, this is what we have to do. It's a part of who I am. But there's such a freeing moment when you realize, oh, I can reframe this. I don't have to feel the negative. Is there positive in this? Maybe there's not. Maybe there's a way that I can look at it from a different perspective. And that's like working out. That's serious training. And like you said, it takes time.
it takes putting the reps in, right? And if you think of, like, for me personally, I think I've been a worrier since I was a child, right? So that's a lot of reps put into letting my mind drift to places that are, uncertain. So to repattern that new thought life, it's not an easy process. It's not an overnight fix. It takes time. It takes effort, just like, working out in a gym takes effort. You got to put those reps in. And that's the only way that you get better at doing it. Otherwise, we are fueling the habit of worry if we are going in the opposite direction. So we can fuel that habit, or we can fuel a habit of, when things feel a little uncertain or I'm triggered, taking time away to just be still, to meditate, to pray, to read, to do the things that calm us instead. But I still have to catch myself every once in a while, but that's exactly it. The empowerment of, okay, this is a choice. I can go here if I want to. And I say that to my kids. Do you want to go there? Is that where you're headed right now? Because I can't come with you, right? If I come with you, then we're both having a pity party or whatever it is, right? But we do have the choice. We absolutely have the choice over the thoughts that we entertain. And before I knew that we had the choice, I didn't think I did. But empowerment comes from getting the tools and the awareness of knowing, okay, this is something that I am facing and I have the power to overcome it.
You talk about things not being an overnight fix. It probably also doesn't take an overnight to write a book. Was there specific things maybe that you wanted to make sure that you pinpointed, or things that you wanted to touch on? And were there new things maybe that you didn't think that you would be putting into it that you ended up writing about? This
was definitely a process. This book was my second book. After the first one, I vowed I will never write a book again. And we got to be careful.
Never say never.
Never say never, honestly, because no sooner had I literally held the first book in my hands than I heard the words, "Don't let what if ruin what is." And I knew it was the title of my second book. And so I wrote it down in a journal and I laughed because I thought, that's funny. Like, I didn't want to ever do this again, but I did. And so going into this book, I did have a plan for it. I did have my own version of what it was going to look like. And I will say that it took on a completely different form over the course of about 2 years in the making. 6 months into this, I was in a car accident and actually got a concussion from the car accident. And unfortunately, I had to pause everything in my life for a period of time. It took a while to recover from. It was very frustrating. In hindsight, I actually came along the path of another woman who was struggling with a similar situation after I had recovered from mine. And I could meet her right in the moment of frustration that she was experiencing, because I know what that's like to have your life put on hold. So I think sometimes looking back, we see that's why I went through that, or that's what that was for, or that's what that could be used for. And that was the opportunity I was given with that. And then 7 chapters in, I was sure it was done. 2:00 in the morning, I'm wide awake and I hear God say, write chapter 8. And I was like, it's done. What do you mean? It's done.
No.
And as I'm laying there, the words just started to come for chapter 8. The day before, a staff member of mine had shared how 8 represented new beginnings. And I was like, the day before, and then I hear right chapter 8. So it's like it had to happen. So it took on a form all of its own, I would say, definitely directed from God. And he used kind of a lot of things. I'm very vulnerable in the book. A lot of things that my husband and I have been through in our life to show that, he uses the bruises, right? And so that's what I would say. I shared a lot of my bruises in this process, more than I thought I was going to share. In the hopes that anyone going through these struggles, or, similar ones or different ones, can see that if I can get to the other side after everything I've been through, and it's a lot, they can too. There is a way to get there. There is a way to get the help they need, and there is a way to overcome it. And honestly, live with peace as much as you can when you have 3 boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, incredible. I'm just going to take a quick, hard right, because you're talking about the book, but you're also, we've been talking about the reps, and all of this seems like it's like the practice of being able to think in a different way, to use your tools. And so I have to ask this question. At what point were you like, hey, I want to do a whole bunch of burpees?
I know.
Like, I hate burpees.
You and everybody
Nobody
else.
likes them.
My husband and I almost split up over burpees.
That's amazing.
They're still going through counseling.
Yeah. Well, I might need the counseling for loving burpees so much.
Yes.
I really do. I love them way too much. There's a running joke in our home. My oldest says, Mom, burpees will not be in heaven. They're definitely in hell. And I say to him, like, but I'll be the one who brings them to heaven. And then he says, well, nobody will like you in heaven, Mom. And that's fair. That's fair.
The only person not liked in heaven.
Yeah, exactly. So, we were going through COVID. My husband and I run a fitness business. That's actually like our primary source of income is fitness.
Okay.
That's what we do. That's our trade. He has his degree in kinesiology. We own and operate New You Personal Training Studio in Listowel, Ontario. And our business got shut down for a total actually of 11 months due to COVID closures.
Wow.
And so I just felt like this is a time where we could, have a legitimate pity party for ourselves. Because people were going through a lot of stuff. Obviously it was very serious. People are losing their life. It's horrible, horribly traumatic. I saw the looming mental health crisis with a lot of our clients. And I just felt like we can go there, or we can choose to do something positive that maybe inspires people, that challenges me personally. So my son had brought home from Library Day the Guinness Book of World Records, and he was asking me questions about could I do something like this? And I was like, yeah, absolutely you could. You can do anything you work for. And that was kind of the end of the conversation as we looked through this cool book. And the next day I was having my lunch break, and I had just finished, we have an online business as well. We work with busy moms. And I had just finished a call with the moms where I said, children will be what they see, not what we tell them. And I felt so convicted. I told him he could do anything he works for, but maybe I should show him that you can do anything you work for. And so I really do like burpees a lot. And so I just Googled, most burpees done in 1 hour. And when I saw that it was 716, I knew that I could beat it. I didn't know by how much, but something came inside of me and it was like, you can beat this. You can do this. And so I signed up right then and there. I'm a big believer in if you get that moment where it feels right, you got to do it before you overthink it. And so I went for it. I applied to break the record and it was approved. And when I got the letter back, it was like a real moment where, okay, now I really got to do this.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of burpees. But I did, and it was so cool for him to see that kind of went, got a lot of publicity and went a lot of places. And it was fun for him to be on CTV National with me and share kind of how he prompted the whole thing, because he really did. And him just seeing that moment of completion, you really can do even the craziest of things if you put the reps in, if you put the hard work in. It's amazing what we really can do if we're willing to make the effort, right? So I do like burpees too much.
I have a problem with this though, Alison, is that the record was 716. So that means at 717, you could have stopped.
You could have quit.
But you decided to do the extras.
Yes,
that's the problem that I have, is because that just makes me feel like even when I think that I don't do more, I can still do more.
Yeah, I had a wonderful woman at the side who was one of my judges counting the reps. And when I got to 7, I think it was 720 or something like that. She's like, you didn't come this far to only come this far, which is funny because I say that when I teach my classes, but having that back to me, it was like, oh, fine. I wanted to lay down, but I was like, I'll get back up. I'll keep getting back up, even if I'm tired, even if I don't want to. Even if I'm really not in the mood right now. Yeah. So we have more in us. And what's really amazing about that story actually is that a woman just up the road from my house, 20 minutes, broke my record. And she is a little bit older than me. So I reached out in a nice way at full respect, because I was like, if she did more burpees than I did.
What's her number?
Belinda Cox is her name. And she is a phys ed teacher, and she did the same thing. In COVID, she just saw my record broke. She thought, oh, I might be able to beat that. She totally did. And now we're amazing friends. It's so cool how things can happen like that connect you. She might like burpees more than I do. We're both crazy, I know.
Well, how many did she do?
Her number, I think she did, I might be wrong, but I think she did 758 maybe. And
I think you could do 759.
Well, you know what it is now? Someone in British Columbia has the record at 815.
Yeah, no, I quit.
Yeah.
I'm out, tapping out.
No, good.
I looked at it the other day and I thought, I wonder if I could beat that. Yeah. I'm not going to go there just yet, but that would be fun to try.
Minute number 1, 60 seconds in, would be my why me moment.
Yes. Well, yeah, that's real life stuff. I was doing a workout just yesterday with my husband. We work out together, and I got the first round done, and I was going, why? Why was this a good idea? Like, this is not a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
We get to the end, and hindsight, it's a good thing. You feel good getting to the good part, right? But you got to push through the hard parts to get to the good part. So mentally, physically, emotionally, we have to, just keep taking that next step to get to the good part. And there is a good part. I promise that.
Yeah, keep doing the reps till it pays off.
Keep doing the reps. It really does pay off. And the good part after that workout was laying down on a cold floor.
There you go.
Right.
To get back up, right?
Yeah. Well, you alluded to a why me moment earlier on. Is there any other why me moments that you would care to share today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I talked a little bit about, my son when he was 3, and it was definite why me moment. I just noticed that he was pale, and I took him I just happened to have a doctor's appointment because I was anemic, and my doctor wanted to do some follow-up blood work. And I just noticed he was pale. That was literally it. And I thought, I'm going to bring him, that mama gut moment. I'm going to bring him with me just to get his blood work done, make sure he's not anemic too. And they did his blood work, and it was the dead of winter. We get home, there's a really bad snowstorm. I get a phone call at 10 o'clock at night from the lab, and they're like, you need to get your son to emerge right away. His hemoglobin's at a 36. And I was like, are you sure? Like, he's fine. He's 3. He's sound asleep. Like, I'm pretty sure, we could get him up tomorrow. She's like, no, I don't think you understand. This is a life or death moment. And so I had a second child at the time who needed mom. So my husband took him in to emerge, and they did another test and confirmed that this was an emergency. And they rushed him to London's Sick Kids Hospital, and did a bunch of tests. And for 3 days we were in oncology, and it was kind of like a moment. How did we get here? Like, wasn't he fine? Like, he just was a little bit pale. But it ended up being that he had a rare blood disorder. And so we basically were at his bedside. Well, he got emergency blood transfusions, hoping that he was going to make it, and told that he might not make it. Like, it's a very low hemoglobin, and his heart was impacted a little bit because of that. And just at the bedside, hoping and praying that he was going to be okay, and wondering, like, how did we get here? Why are we here? Why us? After everything, like, my husband had gone through his ICU moment just a few years before that. The plane crash was just a few years before that. And now we're facing this, wondering, is my son going to be okay? And my husband and I both had what we like separate moments, but interestingly enough, almost at the same time. He was going to the parking garage of the hospital, and I was in the elevator because they needed me to go and grab some stuff, some of Andrew's clothes. And we both just said, hey, God, like, he's yours, not ours. And it was just a moment of surrender, and also questioning, why? And are you there? And are you seeing what's going on? Like, obviously he is, but we all have those moments where our faith is tested, and ours definitely was. And we both surrendered Andrew to God, and trusted that, these emergency blood transfusions are going to be the thing that helps him. And then the weeks that followed, he bounced back and is a healthy, thriving 11-year-old. We're grateful every single day, even though some days he drives us crazy and he is the messy one and I like to be clean. So, but we just appreciate the mess that he brings to this life because he is, healthy and he's still here and he's here for a reason and a purpose. And we don't take it for granted because we know that not everyone does make it. Some people do lose their children, but those moments, they really do define us and they test us in a big way. And I think that testing of like, what are you going to believe in this moment? Who are you going to go to in this moment? What are you going to question in this moment? Those tests are really important because they truly get to the foundation of what we do believe. Yeah. So yeah, that was definitely a why me moment for sure.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Don't let what if ruin what is. A mom's guide to worry less and to live more. They are a couple that work out together. My wife and I are a couple that think about working out together at the Fit Switch Project. Alison, we appreciate you taking some time and sharing your heart today.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
I do appreciate the fact that we will talk more about mental health. We'll talk more about worry. We'll talk more about anxiety and that things that we wouldn't have these conversations 10 years ago are now in the forefront and are important that we're having.
Yeah, I just so appreciate people like Alison being vulnerable, sharing their experiences, because so many of us can relate, and it's just reassuring to know, number one, that you're not alone, and number two, that there are resources out there to help you navigate so that you can have the tools and you can go from, parenting from a place of worry or shame to parenting from a place of victory and support.
Yeah. And don't let it get so bad that it's that debilitating for you. There is a lot of help out there that, people who, my wife, for instance, is now dealing with a lot of that stuff in helping patients. And we hear of a lot of other people who are saying, hey, I read this book or I was able to do these breathing exercises. There's as bad as the internet is, Holly, there's also some good that comes from the internet.
A few things here or there.
Yeah, amen to that. But thank you to everybody who has reached out, who downloads, who subscribes, who is a part of all of our social medias, because without you, we wouldn't be able to continue to get this thing growing.
Yeah, exactly. So visit all the socials. Also check out the YouTube channel as we are there as well, sharing shorts and full lengths. And of course, you can always go to faithstrongtoday.com.